And you have helped every single one of those children. The Manalapan Little League, who many of us who have played on their fields, you've helped put that field together and made it a better place. The Flight 93 Memorial and the Memorial for the Monmouth County Victims, that's on Mount Mitchell, overlooking the New York skyline. When somebody needs peace and solace and to go to remember that one of their loved ones, you've helped build that memorial. There's a good friend of mine growing up was Christopher Gray, employee of Cantor Fitzgerald, was killed in 9/11. There is a scholarship in his name at West Virginia, University of West Virginia. When someone can't afford to go to college, you help educate that child. And the Samaritan Center, right here in our backyard, there are very hungry people. And when they go and someone goes in to find a few cans of food on a shelf to feed their family, every single one of you have helped feed that family. It's a tremendous honor to say that to say thank you to people who have raised $150,000 for very, very noble causes. You just wow us every single year. And a very, very heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you. Please give yourselves a round of applause.
How are you? Can we talk to you for just a minute or two?
If you can walk with us.
Oh, sure, we'll try. Is it the first time?
First time walking, yes.
Did you happen to know Joe Driscoll?
No, I knew his son, Chris Driscoll, from our church.
And what are your feelings as you do this walk today?
I was in the Marine Corps, so I remember 9/11 very well. My son was in Iraq, and I just think this is a great reminder as to what we need to do.
Well, thank you for sharing your feelings, and have a great walk.
You too.
Hi, thanks for watching Manalapan Township Television and our program today here at the Manalapan Battlefield State Park, where we took you on a walk with Joe in honor of Patrick Joe Driscoll. If you wish to participate in the walk next year, or perhaps even be a sponsor, visit their website, walkwithjoe.com. On behalf of Manalapan Township Television Network and our other host, Joe Fezza, thank you for watching.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Publics Meeting Act, notice of this meeting was sent and advertised in the Asbury Park Press. A copy of that notice was posted on the bulletin board where public notices are displayed in the municipal building. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Accordingly, this meeting is deemed to be in compliance with the Open Publics Meeting Act. Please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chairman, if we can get a roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Cohen is obviously here.
Did he make it?
He's here. Ms. Kwok? Absent. Chief Hogan?
Present.
Mr. Eisner?
Here.
Chairman McNabo?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Holland?
Here.
Committeeman Green?
Here.
Mr. Mendez?
Here.
Mr. Niebling?
Present.
Mr. Aronson?
Here.
And Mr. Pine is absent. Okay.
Thank you. Kuchara, could we swear in our professionals, please?
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Richard Kramer, professional planner with T&M Associates.
Jim Winkowski, professional engineer, CMA Associates.
Thank you. The Township of Manalapan Television Network will be videotaping this meeting for rebroadcast on Channel 77 and FiOS 42. By attending this evening, attendees acknowledge this recording and agree to allow their image to be broadcast on MTTN and Verizon FiOS. All attendees and participants agree to conduct themselves in a manner appropriate for a public gathering. Inappropriate behavior or gatherings creating a disturbance or safety hazard are prohibited inside this building. Individual speakers should be advised that no right of privacy protects a citizen's public comments made in a public forum. Any statement made by a member of the public to promote or alter public opinion about a candidate for political office, a political party, or interest groups are inappropriate and in violation of MTTN broadcast policies. Accordingly, all participants bear responsibilities for their own statement and commentary. Everybody got in their packet, or their electronic packet, the minutes of December 8th, 2011. and January 12th, 2012. We'll vote on them separately since some people were not on the board, or some that were on in 12 were not on in 11. Does everybody have a copy of the minutes of the December 8th, 2011? Anybody have any questions on them? Anybody like to make a motion on them?
I'll make the motion for the first set of minutes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who made the motion?
Chief Hogan.
Okay. Second by Committeeman Green. Okay, Mr. Cohen, yes. Ms. Clark's absent. Chief Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner? Chairman McNabo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Holland?
Yes.
Committeeman Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Abstain.
Mr. Niebling?
Abstain.
Mr. Aronson?
Abstain.
And Mr. Pine is absent. Okay.
Thank you. Same thing, we have minutes for January 26, 2012. Everybody have a chance to look at them? Would like to make a motion on them?
I move to pass the minutes as standing.
Second.
Okay, hold on. Mr. Mendez, Mr. Niebling. Mr. Cohen is yes. Chief Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Chairman McNabo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Holland?
Yes.
Committeeman Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Niebling?
Yes.
And Mr. Aronson?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. PAS 1227, Resolution, Northern Monmouth Regional Surgical Center, amended site plan. Everybody remember this?
Yes.
Building Route 9 southbound, right? Everybody have a chance to look through that resolution? It's a copy in front of you as well as coming to you electronically. Anybody have any questions or statements on it? Anybody like to make a motion on it?
I'll move it.
Who said it first, Don or the chief?
I think it was the deputy mayor.
Deputy Mayor. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Here we go.
Mr. Cohen is a yes. Chief Hogan?
Yes, I signed the affidavit. I did watch the meeting, and I'm a yes.
Okay, Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Chairman McNabo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Holland?
Yes.
Committeeman Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Niebling?
Yes.
Mr. Aronson?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Cucharo, is there an objection? Could we do the sign ordinance first, and we'll have the entire evening open then for our master plan afterwards?
I think the sign ordinance, we already recommended that, and I think this is just confirmation that it was actually adopted.
No, not the sign ordinance, the Freehold Road
Oh, I'm
Associate
sorry,
sign
the
itself.
sign application.
It's an application,
Oh,
yeah.
you can, Mr. Chair, you can do,
Fine. So then we're not going to take it out of order. Revised master plan amendment to the land use plan element, continued public hearing.
Mr. Chair, if I could just kind of frame where we are. Several months ago, the board sat down and discussed with Mr. Kramer some possible changes that it wanted to explore with regard to the master plan. Subject to that, Mr. Kramer had produced a draft amendment to the master plan's land use element. The board entered into public hearings. We took a lot of testimony from members of the public. Mr. Kramer also testified. There were several questions from members of the board. As a result of that, the board tweaked the proposed amendments to the master plan. Most notably, any changes to the OP10 zone were removed, and there were a few minor adjustments to the other proposals. So Mr. Kramer has prepared a new or a revised master plan amendment which incorporates all of those changes that were a result of the public hearing process. So tonight, Mr. Kramer will present those to the board and to the public. We can take testimony with regard to the changes, and then the board can determine whether it would like to act on it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this amendment that's before the board tonight is for recommended changes to the land use plan for the limited business district in Millhurst, the limited business district on Wilson Avenue, the SED 20 Special Economic Development District on Route 33, also the SED 20W Special Economic Development Warehouse Distribution District on Route 33, and the SED 5 Special Economic Development District. As Mr. Cucchiaro pointed out, this is a continued hearing. The document that is before the board tonight is, for the most part, the same as the document that was initially submitted to the board with the following exceptions. As Mr. Cucchiaro pointed out, OP10 is no longer part of this amendment, and there is no proposal to change any of the land use recommendations for the OP10 zone within this document. With respect to the limited business Wilson Avenue limited business district on Millhurst, the recommendation of the plan is to provide for, as it was in the prior draft, expansion of the boundaries of the district to allow for the location of the Clifford Snyder grist mill as part of the district. Furthermore, the recommendation is to add for a series of additional uses, and the only use that has been added since the last hearing is a recommendation for flex space as part of that zone, and that's consistent with the direction that the board gave at the prior hearing. With respect to the limited business Wilson Avenue district, there have been no changes to the recommendations from the prior plan. That continues to recommend that that district be amended to allow for non-residential uses such as educational uses, data centers, and fitness clubs. With respect to the recommendations for the SED 20W and the SED 5 zone, again, these changes are essentially the same as in the prior draft. The recommendation is to allow for automobile sales agency development as a conditional use of those zones to the west of Millhurst, of the intersection of Route 33 with Millhurst Road. The board asked a specific question at that time as to what the length of that segment of the highway is, and it's 2.9 miles. The recommendation of the plan is to require minimum spacing distance between automobile sales agencies that are on the same side of Route 33 of approximately 1/2 mile. With respect to the recommendation on supermarkets and restaurants, there's been no change from the prior draft. The recommendation is that they be permitted as conventional uses as of right in the SED 20, SED 20W, and the SED 5 districts at front on Route 33. With respect to the Special Economic Development Warehouse Distribution District, the recommendation within the draft that's before the board is the same as in the prior hearing, which is at the time that the state finally makes known what the town's further Mount Laurel obligation is, that the town review that location as a possible alternative to the Panhandle site, which is presently designated in the master plan housing plan element that's been certified COA as a future affordable housing site. Lastly, with respect to the C3 commercial zone district, the recommendation has not changed from the prior draft. The recommendation is that that district be amended for those properties at front on Route 33 to include educational uses, data centers, and flex space in that zone district. And those are uses which the master plan that had been amended, the amendment back in, it was in April of this year, recommended those uses for the other zone districts along Route 33, so that now all of those zone districts at front on Route 33 would be allowed, permitted the same set of uses. And that, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, is the document and the recommendation that's before the board tonight.
Thank you very much. Anybody on the board have any questions what was just laid out by our planner? Mr. Kramer, I'm going to ask you one. This Panhandle site that we have, that had been set up or can be part of our COA, what is involved in, if we had another site, of removing this site? What kind of process does that take?
The township would have to go back before COA to amend the housing plan that it adopted and that COA certified to request the removal of the site from the plan as this housing site. And in order to do that, the town would need to proffer an alternative to it that was also suitable for affordable housing development.
Okay, and that decision is made by COA then? I'm sorry.
There may be, and we'd have to investigate, there may be another step involved, because this entire district was a result of litigation where developers had brought an action against the town for affordable housing, and part of the settlement was the creation of, I think, what we commonly call the consent zone. Part of that process in court is what they call a fairness hearing, where the court has to determine that the settlement advances the public interest, and there's a public notice that's involved in that. If that went on, it may be necessary to have another round with the court to make sure that removing the site also promotes the public interest. But we'd have to investigate that a little more. So there may be a Superior Court element of this as well.
So it's not as easy as finding another piece of land and moving our obligation from one to the other?
No.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? How about in response, as we read this now with the dealerships as we went through it, we see that we didn't have exact mileage last time, right? We have a 2.9 miles from 527 to 527A, showing a half mile between them. I think we did our math work when we did it. Although that would be in a perfect clean slate that we don't have there. We said, what did we come up with? We could do 6, 7, 8. Is everybody comfortable with that number? Anybody would like think we should? We good there?
Jack?
Yes.
I think we should set a limit, because I understand that we can't do the zigzag with that half-mile setting. If there's two sides to Route 33, and is that half-mile spacing just lateral or this way also, both sides?
The recommendation is that it be measured on one side. So what you're talking about is, yes, as long as it was on the other, it was half a mile from on that side of the road from another one. Yes.
There's some dimensional requirements and everything too, right?
Yes, there are some other dimensional requirements that would tie to the minimum size of the lot that would be part of it, and also frontage requirements. So it's unlikely that you would have conditions where you perfectly had a half mile on any one side. It's highly unlikely that that would happen, but it would be that is the standard that's being recommended as part of this amendment.
Thank you. Is everybody comfortable with that? Is that what you saw when you came down here? Rich, could I ask you that? Can we do the half mile as across the street, or is that not done because of the highway being the separation of it?
It was, I thought that had been discussed at the hearing.
It is.
My takeaway was that the intent was to use that as the standard to be measured on one side of the...
You got it exactly right. Now I'm just discussing if we were trying to use the word limit them a little bit. I don't know that I want to see, the possibility of 8. I'm thinking of maybe limiting that number. We have 0 now. Correct. I certainly think car dealerships fit on Route 33.
You're not...
I don't want to over...
Yeah, you're not compelled to do it in the way that it's written here. If the board feels that it's appropriate to, the appropriate spacing distance should be measured along the highway and take into account both sides, that's a recommendation that the board can make.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, also, I just want to be clear that even if that's the recommendation in the master plan,
right,
when it goes to the town council for the drafting of an ordinance, they can still draft it in a way that can limit it in terms of distance and spacing.
Okay. And just in regards, off the top of your head, if I'm not putting you on too much spot, Mr. Kramer, what is the buffering between any one of these commercial developments and a residential zone? for instance, what do we have, 2 residential zones out on 33, really? The Four Seasons and the Nob Hill.
The buffering that would be applicable to a,
On the commercial zone to the residential.
I would have to check that, but it's typically, it varies by zone district, but it typically is, it's going to be 50 feet or more, 50 feet being the minimum, and then it goes up from that depending upon the zone district and the size of the building.
Okay. And of course, on site plan, we would worry about the plantings and all of that stuff. So light wash from one to the other, that kind of stuff, we'd have a shot at addressing all of that.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I want to add too, the both residential districts that are on 33, they're both bordered by streams too, so there'll be the environmental buffers automatically will give you.
Get a little closer, Jim, thanks.
Both residential districts along on 33, both are bounded by streams, so they'll have environmental buffers as well, just besides the standard, commercial residential buffers. So immediately they'll have at least 100 feet plus whatever, the floodplains and wetlands extend beyond them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Anybody else have anything?
Mr. Kramer, what's the maximum number of dealerships then that could be put in that topography? 12?
Well, if you went with, in theory, if you had, if the standard is a half a mile and you have a, if the standard is going to be half a mile, we have a 3-mile frontage, and you have, I believe. Can you speak up? Yes, if you have if it's a half a mile separation requirement, it's a 3-mile frontage, and each of these developments, each of these agencies would consume several hundred feet of frontage along the along the highway, because there's a frontage requirement of 200 or 300 feet. Then you're probably talking about within that 3-mile distance, you're probably talking realistically maybe 4 tops on any one side.
Okay. Keep it down, folks, please.
Sorry, what is it? I have to check the arithmetic.
So that's 8, yeah.
It's about 4. Can you speak up? Yes, I'm going to speak up.
They're talking amongst themselves. Just give them a second.
I'm consulting with the engineer who is better at math than I am, and he confirms that it's about 4 on each side.
Thank you.
Per side, yes.
Okay. Jack, you had something else? That was it? Anybody else?
And all of these dealerships are in the overlay zone and would be subject to the setback and berming requirements?
Yes, these all are in the overlay zone, and they would be subject to the berming and the setback requirements.
Kramer, if I could take your map here for a second. I believe you're the author of the map here. If I were to come out of 527 and made a westbound turn on 33, the first thing I come to is a large VC zone. That would not allow a dealership at all.
Correct.
I then come down the road and we start entering what would be the Four Seasons area. I don't see that we squeeze one in at all between VC and Four Seasons. Is that pretty much correct?
That's correct, because you have a stream corridor between those.
Now, I don't know about environmentals, but with the new Wawa going in, it appears that there's a piece of land there that's part of the SED 20 that may allow for it. I don't know the size. It does have Route 33 frontage.
Where that farm is.
And it would kind of wrap around the Wawa. Do you see that?
Yes,
I believe there's
right
a home
over
there
here.
right now, a single-family home. White, if I'm not mistaken.
Right in here. Yes, I see that.
I don't know if that's the size. So if, in proximity to Four Seasons, that's the only one that could even be considered. Am I close in assuming that? I just want to
That would be the closest site, yes.
Okay. So now as we come down, we have the SED 20, which would be on the west side of Woodward Road and Route 33. That appears that we could have one, which would be across Woodward from the Wawa that's being constructed.
Yes.
That would be a possible site. And then after we clear Nob Hill, there's another SED 20 and maybe an SED 20W somewhere in there. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what we have.
For the rest of
How close we're
Woodward?
putting it to residential.
Are we talking to we're talking to the west of Woodward?
West of Woodward, right. There's an SED 20 zone prior to coming
Yeah.
up to Nob Hill.
Before you reach Nob Hill, yes, that has potential.
Okay. So it'd be, theoretically, they could be on either side of Route, either side of Nob Hill, but it doesn't appear you may be able to get one between Wawa and Four Seasons, or not. How big is that piece? Can we tell from here?
Between Nob Hill and Four Seasons.
Do you see that?
Yes, I see.
This is
Those
better.
are,
I'm able to work off
yeah.
this one. It works pretty well.
Yeah, they're very large tracks.
Okay.
They're very large tracks.
I got you. I'm just trying to get my count on you here as we go down. And then obviously the other side of the road has more room for them. But I'm just saying the westbound lanes I was trying to work off of first. Everybody have it. If you see it on this one, right?
Make it happen.
Oh, huh, don't I feel special?
You got it before this.
I did. It came in this package.
2 or 3. No, this is all.
Really? Huh. Okay. Fine. Let me pass it down anyways. This guy's to help you out. There's the whole thing in zones going down through there if it helps you at all. Okay. Ron, we taken any input, or is this strictly board talk at this point, or how
At
we?
this moment, it's board discussion, and you can open it up for public comment on the revisions that have been made to the plan since the last time.
Okay, on the next reading. All right, everybody good? Anybody have questions on this side? None? Folks, bear with us a second. Some of these I see in this map, it's a different, clearer map, so I wanted to see it for the first time. Do you have that? Did anybody else have that copy that came with me? It came in this August 6th one. Yeah, that's a good one, but the other one is colored in there. There's your DC, there's that, so it's possible you can hear this zone.
C3?
Right.
C3 too.
Let me know when you guys got it all. I don't want to push you, but.
You got a satellite and special technology.
Oh, look at them. Look. Aren't they fancy? Deputy Mayor, were you trying to do something to limit, or you're comfortable with the number that we have right now? You started to say something and I may have cut you off. You're good where you are? Okay. Right. Are you guys good? You have a map down there? You're comfortable with it? You can see the sizing and all? Okay. Good. Yes. What's that? I was coming up with even more in the northbound. So you're saying 6 you think is the maximum you're going to squeeze? Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. Right, yeah. Again, we talked about a clear slate, guys. This is not a clear slate. There's a lot of existing businesses and environmentals and everything else in the middle. I just wanted to know what our worst case was, and that's the number we got.
There's only one out of those 3.
Get one between. Okay, that's what I came up with, which would be Woodward Road. Right. Across from the Wawa. Yeah, I got you. Got you. Okay, good. Or 2, that's what I was coming up with, and that's what I wanted to see. So even if we stayed with 8, math work-wise, we're never going to fit more than 6. And even there, with existing businesses, we're more like 4. And that's where I'm more comfortable. The 8 number may...
Can we just start west of Woodward and not start west of Millhurst?
Mr. Kramer, did you hear that question?
Can we start west of Woodward instead of west of Millhurst? Is there a reason we can't do that?
There's no reason why you couldn't do that. It would further restrict, obviously, where they could locate, but it's the board's discretion as to what it believes is appropriate for the community as to the location of this type of use.
Well, there's obviously more areas for them to build something like that west of Woodward. So if we start there, A, you're limiting the amount of locations, and you have less impact on the residential areas.
And those are planning reasons for making that judgment call. The reason that I had recommended west of Millhurst was because of the reason that I had recommended west of Millhurst only is that because when you go to the east of Millhurst, the highway access classification changes for Route 33, so you have limited access on the freeway portion of the bypass, so you can't get direct access to the highway. And then the business portion is a two-lane road. It's not in the same level of intensity or the ability to carry volumes of traffic as the portion of 33 to the west of Millhurst Road. That's why it was limited to west of Millhurst Road in my recommendation.
Right, but if we wanted to make it west of Woodward, we'd be in our right to do that.
Yes, if your planning reason is because you're taking into account, one, the proximity to existing residential development that's out there on the northbound side, and also as to your concern about the number that could be located on the highway, and also reserving the frontage of the highway for other uses, then yes, you could set a condition that would limit it to west of Woodward Road.
Does that have to be done as, do we need to vote on that? What do we have to do at this point?
Well, in the plan that you adopt should identify the limitation that you're proposing as to location, because that would be a condition. What I had suggested is that this be permitted as a conditional use rather than a use as of right that can go anywhere within these zones, and so that in addition to the requirement that it was in a specific zone, there can be further limitations on the use, and they would be such as we had discussed the spacing requirement, and we already have the limitation that's in there that they can only happen to the west of Millhurst Road. So if the board wants to further restrict where it can possibly locate within the quarter as you establish your planning reasons, and yes, that can be put into a revised plan document.
Well, I would like to suggest to my colleagues here that we start west of Woodward instead of west of Millhurst.
Are you speaking of both sides of Route 33?
Still talking to both sides of 33, but using Woodward to our western border instead of Millhurst to our west. That will limit the impact to the residents more than if we did it from Millhurst.
Everybody have that? You see it on your map? Yeah. I have no problems with your suggestion. Like I said, we have nothing now to take it out of the residential area and then leave it for the future. Again, I don't see it ever being around Four Seasons on the westbound lane, eastbound lane. Right. On the northern side as you're heading west, correct? It's already west, it's already west of Woodward. So I have no objection. Let me poll the board. Does anybody else have an objection to that? No. This way? No. Is that an easy fix, Mr. Kramer?
As far as the text of the ordinance, I'll defer to the board counsel as to whether that requires further hearing.
Where are we there, Mr.?
It's a significant change, not a controversial one, but my recommendation would be that that we have the document that we're actually going to vote upon in front of us when we do it. Okay. Also, we're not done. There may be a few other things as we move along, but I would recommend that it be redrafted and it come back here for a vote.
Okay.
Is it possible to vote and then just memorialize it at the next meeting?
Well, you could do both at the next, if you wanted, you could do voting and memorialization at the next meeting if you wanted, but I still feel that you need to see the actual text in the document. We should have a final document in front of us when we're voting on it. But because we're at a pretty advanced stage now, what I would do is I'd prepare the resolution memorializing it so that you could look at the document, vote on it, and memorialize at the same time.
Thank you.
Mr. Kuchiyara isn't chasing his tail. Is there any other changes in this that anybody saw that they'd like to discuss this evening? So the other zones that we discussed, nobody saw flaws in them or things that they'd like to tweak or change or anything like that, right? Because this is significant, so we'll have to go back and have it redrawn and do it again. All right, I think that we were in agreement, Mr. Kuchiyara, that we'll go west of Woodward.
Yes. And we'd still permit it on both sides.
Both sides.
Of 33.
Same spacing. So I'm interpreting, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the only change will be the word Millhurst will be changed to the word Woodward. Okay? Is that as far as we go with it this evening, then?
Well, you could open it up to the public just on the changes since the last draft and the change that we proposed tonight.
Okay.
That way, when we come back, if there are no further changes, it could just be a vote at the next meeting.
Great. Any members of the public wishing to come forward and address this board?
Hang on, Chairman. Before the first speaker starts, can I just clarify with Mr. Kuchiyara? I guess my concern is that the rest of the amendment, I was hoping we would be voting on that tonight because the Township Committee has carried its public hearing on Ordinance 2012-11 to September 12th. So I don't know. Our next meeting after tonight is September 13th, of course. So, I mean, I was hoping at least in terms, I think the Township Committee is hoping, at least in terms of the ordinance, that we amend the master plan tonight at the conclusion of the public hearing regarding LBW and LBM. So how does the changing of Woodward, Millhurst to Woodward impact that?
If I jump in while you're thinking, could we do everything but the dealerships, or is that
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, great, thank you.
Give me a moment.
Yep.
All right, you want to resume the public hearing while we're on things?
Yeah, go ahead and come on forward.
Okay, you swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name and give us your address.
Larry Cooper, 4 Lusitano Road. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Aronson, for trying to be a little bit more forward with your thinking about the residents who live close by. We were discussing this matter quite a bit at our community, and my personal feeling is that we should go one step further and be on the other side of eliminate that one on Woodward Road and go one step further, because that Woodward Road now is going to be a very vital corner, because right now there's going to be a Wawa there. You're widening the road to 5 lanes, and if a dealership goes there, they're going to be using that for their turnaround, for them to go up and back onto Woodward Road, and it's going to make Woodward Road quite congested, in and out, and it's going to be quite the it will not make Woodward Road very nice for people to travel on at this point in time or in the future to come. I just think between Nob Hill and Four Seasons, I believe that one piece of property should be eliminated and go one step further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please come forward, ma'am. I'll take it. Keep it close enough, you're on television.
I've been before.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Joan Pochak, 11 Silver Charm Road. I'm in Four Seasons.
Excuse me, spell your last name, please.
P like Peter, O-C-H-E-K. Thank you. I have something I'd like to read. Please excuse me for my voice. Many of our residents moved here, meaning Four Seasons, from New York and northern New Jersey. I would venture to guess that none of them came here to buy a car. We came here because Manalapan is a nice place to live, because it cares about preserving land and a lifestyle we want. We don't want 2 to 3 miles with 6 to 8 car dealerships, which I understand you're now talking about changing. However, it still should be moved further where there's less congestion and less problems for safety for everyone. We don't need tall neon lights, signs, more vehicle fumes, screeching brakes, bumper-to-bumper traffic, accidents, and flooded streets from water that has nowhere to go. We already have that on Route 9. Millhouse Road, Route 33 is a busy intersection now with development already approved, so I appreciate the fact that you're willing to move it to Woodward, but I still feel it needs to go a little further past Nob Hill. Michelle Roth mentioned in an article appearing in the August 8th news transcript, and I quote, that the intent of a Route 33 overlay plan would make sure that Route 33 would never look like Route 9. The idea is to keep Route 33 pastoral to look like what rural Manalapan should look like. Motorists on Route 33 should not have to be bombarded with neon, end quote. So what happened with CVS and Walgreens then? Moving signs and lighting back does not stop abruptly turning vehicles, noise, fumes, delivery trucks, water runoff, nor accidents. You live in Manalapan because you chose to live here. You chose to serve on our governing bodies, hopefully to make a positive difference. We need a sound master plan which learns from other towns' mistakes, ordinances, and zoning laws that are enforced. We don't need loopholes and failures to abide by regulations slipping through the cracks. Don't begin the master plan changes at Millhurst Road, which are already congested, but bring them further onto Route 33 well after Nob Hill on both north and south sides of Route 33 to Iron Arm Road, with substantial footage between a half a mile across and lateral. If you plan properly now and do not do to Route 33 what your predecessors did to Route 9, then just maybe your children and your grandchildren will be proud of you and what you're doing today and will choose to live in Manalapan too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward and address this board? Anybody else? Come forward, sir.
You swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Edward Bender, 13 Whirlaway Road, Four Seasons in Manalapan.
Okay.
I think I'll just reiterate a few of the things that were said already. We moved down here from Rockland County, New York 5 years ago, and we came off the thruway and came on 33 and saw all the rural settings. That's one of the reasons why we moved down here. Our kids don't want to live around here anymore. There's too much congestion. The taxes are high. It's just one more thing that's going to make the next generation not stay in this area. It was said before that car dealerships would fit in very well on 33. I don't understand that because a few minutes later, it was said that in a worst-case scenario, there would be 6 car dealerships. Now, if it's going to be a worst-case scenario, that appears to me a negative connotation of car dealerships being on 33. That doesn't coincide with the statement that car dealerships fit on 33. Why do car dealerships fit on 33 rather than making it a place? I understand that development has to take place in the society, but there can be, other business entities. Why do car dealerships fit in on 33? There are enough car dealerships on Route 9, 10 minutes away. Does anybody have an answer?
We're not here to take questions, sir. We're here to let you speak.
If you would like to ask our planner that question, you can, but the board members sit quasi-judicial capacity, so they evaluate all your testimony.
Okay, I'm just, some of the comments about car dealerships just don't they conflict with one another. And I don't think...
Mr. Kramer, if not, we thank the gentleman and we listen to the next person.
The reason that the town began this amendment process, as you're aware, is that the economic conditions have been very poor for the past 4 years, and there is a need for economic development of the township. Beginning last year, the town took a broad view as to what else could be done with respect to its own plan and regulations to encourage, permit, invite additional uses within the town which could be beneficial and work with a suburban community such as Manalapan. And the reason, there was much discussion about Route 33 and what would be appropriate to Route 33, which is fairly restrictive as to what is permitted along that frontage. The basic criteria that I had suggested to the board was that such a use be limited to a state highway, which is typically where you find them. These are high-volume roads for reasons of both access and the delivery of vehicles. So there are 2 divided state highways within Manalapan, one of which is Route 33. Route 33, as I mentioned, had been subject to restrictive standards as to what can happen there. There's a standard that the township put in place some years ago, which is called the overlay zone, which further restricts what can be done as far as site alterations, because the township was concerned about the aesthetic image, the visual image. And so there's buffering and screening requirements that are required along that highway. And I had suggested that automobile sales agencies, which require visibility, might not work with those restrictions. There was long discussion by the board, and the conclusion was that yes, that if we put these restrictions are in place as to the overlay, they would be in place as to and enforced as to automobile sales agencies, and that this use could work on Route 33 because it's an appropriate location with respect to highway access. It's a state highway. It's consistent with the economic development vision that the town has always had for Route 33 to create economic development opportunities and employment opportunities. And the board concluded if it put sufficient standards in place that it could control this use so that it would work on Route 33 with the objectives of the township and the other uses that are along that are in that area now.
I would hope that any car dealerships that do come in, like in certain areas, I see that there's a really wide buffer zone between the highway. I mean, sometimes you can hardly see the cars in the parking lot. On the other hand, there's some car dealerships on Route 9 where 15 feet off the road, they have the Jeeps jumping up in the air 10 feet, like this is, you know, like the racetrack.
And the township, I mean, that issue of the aesthetics and what is seen from the highway and what the public sees was discussed by the board, and that goes back to the board's determination that this use is appropriate, but the restrictions of the buffer zone, which restrict that view so that you can't see cars that are parked, they're not going to be permitted to be parked on berms, and the requirement that there be a berm in place that screens the view of the parking lot is something that the board has written into this plan amendment, and that's why there was a determination that this is a concept that could work and should be offered for public hearing and public comment, which is why everyone is here tonight.
Okay. Great. Thank you for listening to me, and I would hope that significant attention would be given to the residential communities of including Four Seasons and Nob Hill and surely when I heard before that there's talk of a possible dealership wrapping around Wawa. I mean, that would be horrendous to that intersection. Okay, thank you.
Have a good evening. Anybody else wishing to address this board? Please come forward, sir. All right, ma'am. He'll be next.
You swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
It's Kim Silverman, 10 Shoemaker Road, Manalapan, Four Seasons. I'm sorry, what was your address? Kim Silverman? Yes. 10 Shoemaker Road, Four Seasons. Hello. I just have a couple questions. I understand you're talking about the car dealership part of it, but what happens if a restaurant wanted to go in where, you know, like one of those car dealerships would fit in type of thing? Would it still be a half mile for a car dealership? How would that work?
The spacing requirement is, there's no spacing requirement that's recommended as part of this amendment for restaurants. The spacing requirement is for automobile dealerships.
Okay, so if the restaurants all wanted to go in versus car dealerships, or maybe like a strip mall for the light of it?
This is a master plan, and it recommends on a fairly general basis.
Right.
Car dealerships were recommended as what's called a conditional use.
Right.
So it's necessary for the board, when it makes the recommendation, to give an outline as to what it feels the appropriate conditions are. A restaurant use would also be subject to standards, but for this to to go into effect, there needs to be an ordinance adopted by the governing body.
Right.
When the governing body adopts the ordinance, then more specific standards can be applied as to a restaurant use and what would be appropriate for it.
Okay, because I just wasn't sure if we were just talking strictly car dealerships going down at that point. It could be mixed in between.
You could have a restaurant between car dealership uses that are
Right.
within that space.
That's what I wanted to verify. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Now you come forward.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
A-L-A-N-D-O-G-A-R-D. I'd like to get some clarification and then want to make a statement. The earlier discussion that you gentlemen had, and then there was, I guess, discussion about moving or excluding car dealerships east of Woodward. If that was indeed implemented, what's the projected number of car dealerships that would be possible along 33? There was an earlier discussion about that, and now if that's changed, what would be the new number?
You're reducing the distance that they can occur. The half-mile spacing would stay in place, so maybe 4 in that distance.
I can help you with that. Woodward to 527A is 1.5 miles.
Okay, so
So we cut the distance almost in half.
So you possibly could have 2 on each side.
Okay, okay. Speaking for myself, but the gentlemen that were at our community of Four Seasons earlier this week, I think there was a unanimous sentiment in total opposition to the car dealerships anywhere along 33 as being incompatible with not just the current use, but I think all the other uses that have been proposed for that area. And so while I personally appreciate the proposal to exclude the dealerships, I guess it's now east of Woodward, I would think that equal consideration should be given to the folks at Nob Hill. And quite honestly, I think that the other proposals that have been made are suitable and compatible with what we have now and allow for proper growth, but I think that the car dealerships are not a compatible usage. They weren't compatible, they're not on Route 9, why should they be on Route 33 in Manalapan? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward and address this board? Ma'am, come on forward.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Please state and spell your name and give us your address.
Elizabeth Mangini, 21 Palomino Drive, Four Seasons. M-A-N-G-I-N-E. I've lived in Manalapan for 37 years. I lived in Yorktown for 31, and I've moved out to Four Seasons for 6 years. Obviously, I think Manalapan is a great place to live. I have seen what happened to Route 9, and I'm here tonight because I don't want to see it happen on 33. I drove down Route 9 this past week, and I counted the car dealerships. We have 16. 18. And, okay, I might have missed a few.
Please, let her testify or talk.
And for each car dealership, they sell more than one brand of cars. Can someone explain why we think that Manalapan needs to put in car dealerships? Because I just don't understand. And if you're talking about 6, 8, 4, I don't care. You are starting off on the wrong foot. I understand we need ratables. I understand the development of the town. I know the economy has impacted us. I get the big picture. But look at us. We moved to a beautiful community, and we see that you're putting us right underneath. You're sinking us for no good reason. How many people here on the board live in southern Manalapan? Are you happy about this? I certainly don't think you would be. I can understand we need to develop it. But listen, there's a lot of places, there's lots of office complexes that would be very happy out there. They would not impact our services. They would not impact our schools. We just need to do some more homework. And that's what I'm asking. We're going to live with it for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on forward.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Rhoda Chodosh, Chodosh, 18 Mercer, Manalapan. I'd like to weigh in on this whole change that the town is planning here. About 7 to 10 years ago, there was a master plan change and a zoning change to permit 400,000 square foot of retail on the corner of Millhurst and Route 33. That would have accommodated the residents from the Four Seasons and Nob Hill and given them some place to shop and use goods and services. Well, I don't know what happened with that, but the township changed the master plan and the zoning, and nothing was ever built there. So to me, to ask for a master plan change now for car dealerships for quote-unquote a rateable makes no sense. First, you change the zone, fill up that zone, and help the people who live on the south side of Manalapan with all their goods and services and their shopping and their hairdresser and their food supermarket or whatever else they need before you start putting in car dealerships. And I just don't think that after working on a master plan for 10 years, like Mr. Kramer and the town has done, and just approving all the zones and keeping it rural on 33 and with a commercial shopping center in a certain part by 33 to accommodate all the new housing, all the future housing in the next 25 years, and you haven't done anything, I don't see any need to change the master plan again. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else wishing to come forward and address the board? You're next, sir. Come on forward.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your
Susan
address.
Hergenrother. What was it, other than Hergenrother?
And your address.
13 Greenfield Road in Manalapan. I just have a couple of questions. Does the township own any land on 33 along this corridor? Does anybody know?
Or pieces, you want to address it, Rich, besides the panhandle and the...
With actual frontage on Route 33?
Yeah.
It may own some minor pieces, but they're
Not enough to accommodate this type of a project, or?
That would be, yes, my opinion.
No, go ahead. We're
Oh,
trying to figure
okay.
out.
So basically, in order to facilitate the change that you're suggesting, land has to be for sale, somebody has to want to buy it, somebody has to want to sell it, it has to meet all of the criteria that you're talking about, and that's an extremely long process. No? Would you say? To actually get your first car dealership in on Route 33.
I think that's
Do you have anyone that is
speculative.
has already approached the town?
There has been no one that I know of that has approached the town that has requested a change for car dealerships on Route 33. In planning, we encourage the community to be proactive in looking to its future and identifying what it believes is appropriate for the benefit of the community. The board is mindful, as I said, of the circumstances of the past 4 years. Beginning last year, it has been very proactive in looking as to what it permits and allows as part of its plan to make sure that the plan is not a barrier to beneficial economic development. And that's what this process is all about. It's been a very open process, and everyone is here tonight. Planners love public participation. We love to hear what the public has to
I
say.
know.
It results in an informed plan that has community support. And that's as to whether or not it takes a year or 2 years for an actual car dealership to locate on Route 33 if this goes into effect is speculative. Hopefully, it doesn't take an extended or a protracted period of time. But once the plan is in place and permits uses, and for Manalapan, the plan has been in place for many years. Some of those uses that we have permitted, such as corporate office development along Route 33, it hasn't developed on the parcels that, all of the parcels that are there. But it can take a long-term view with planning. It's not a short-term process. When a community such as Manalapan, it builds out over periods of 5, 10, 20 years. So it's a long-term process, and you look to the long term for the build-out of the community.
That was my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask Mr. Kramer a follow-up question to that, because I think it'll help inform the board members and the public. While economic development is certainly a goal that's enumerated in the municipal land use law, even trying to achieve economic development, ultimately the underlying thought process is that the land has to be able to support it, that the surrounding uses have to be compatible with it. It's not merely that you're looking for a rateable and we're going to put it somewhere. There's an analysis that goes to the suitability of the land.
Yeah, that's correct, and it becomes a balancing act because in addition to economic development purposes of the plan, there are conservation purposes. Some lands shouldn't be developed, they should be preserved. Some lands should be in residential use as opposed to non-residential use. And part of the concern is to make sure that all of the pieces in the end work together so that the community is not adversely impacted, including its residents in any residential area.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and
Philip
your address.
Silverman, 16 Shoemaker Road, Manalapan, New
sorry.
Jersey. Philip Silverman, S-I-L-V-E-R-M-A-N. You're about to make a decision that's going to affect this community for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It's not a simple decision to make. You're sitting here, and we've had an hour to think about this. You've had days, months, weeks to think about this. I'm sitting here and listening, and it sounds to me like everybody doesn't seem to have their facts straight or misunderstandings between you. You're about to vote on something that I get the sense that everybody doesn't see eye to eye with, have a complete understanding of what they're actually voting on. Second point is car dealerships are not adding to the quality of life, and this is a quality of life issue, okay? And what we need are services in this area that are lacking, because we do need to run to Route 9 for virtually everything that we're looking for. We need things that are going to add to our value of life here. Car dealerships are not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward? Anybody else? I see no hands. All right, at that point, I'm going to close public. You already had a shot at it, sir. Thank you.
I can't make another comment?
No, sir. At this time, anybody want to address some of the comments that were made? Anybody have questions based on what came up here? And let the Deputy Mayor go first. You're next, Jack. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I understand your rationale for not in my backyard. It says, I don't like to see any more development in Manalapan. I agree with all of you. But it is our responsibility. Understand there's, I'll give you 100 people here. But we have to consider the other 38,000 residents in Manalapan. I've worked the last 12 years preserving farms, as anybody on this board can attest. I don't like development, but we do need rateables. It's either going to be that or it's going to be tax increases. So we have empathy for you. We understand, but we still have to do what's right for Manalapan as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eisner?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it seems like if you look on the northern side of Route 33, that's where all the developments are, the town center, Four Seasons, Nob Hill. Having said that, listening to Mr. Kramer, it sounded like we could develop 4 car dealerships on each side of the road. Listening to the recommendation that we go to Woodward Road, I believe that then we calculated that we would have 4, a net of 4. If instead of going from Woodward Road west, we went north versus south, we'd still have the same net of 4. So that saying, instead of saying from Woodward, you couldn't develop east of Woodward for car dealerships, would it be better just to say you can't develop north of Route 33 car dealerships, and it would still be the same net effect as far as rateables? Just a suggestion and thought.
Okay. Everybody followed then, right? Jack, you want to do it one more time? You want me to sum it for you?
Yeah, you can.
Basically, what I believe, and jump in if you're wrong, we want to go from 527 to 527A, but strictly on the south side of 33, where there is no residential development or very little single-family homes.
Just a suggestion. Basically, by doing that, it's still the same net.
Keep it down, folks, please.
Because if it was 4 and 4, and your suggestion was that if you go use Woodward as the boundary, and you still have a net of 4, then if you just change it from north to south, it's basically the same rateable effect.
Okay.
And it makes a lot of sense. There's more land on that side anyway, as we have Four Seasons, Nob Hill Village, et cetera, on that.
And there's no developments on the south side.
There's one office building, I think.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts over here on that? Okay. You know, do you have anything? Okay. As I go through here, let me just go through it, a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Bender, I'll take responsibility for when I say worst case. I think what I meant to say in worst case is the most that would be built there, not that it was a negative. I live on the south side as well. I think when you polled the board, I didn't raise my hand because I wasn't big on the polling at that point, but I'll be the first one to jump in. I live in proximity to this thing. I would be very happy to have all farmers out there, but, you know, the tax base of Manalapan, I don't think, it's a happy trade-off. We don't want the industry, we don't want the businesses, we don't want the traffic from them, but we do like when they pay their taxes and not put children in schools as well. So from that standpoint, that was my poor choice of words in worst case. Let me say maximum amount, if you'd allow me that change. A couple of the other things that came up there, Mrs. Pochek, I think when you mentioned buffers and green belts, we are not altering those. We agree with you completely. I cringe each time somebody says, I hope you're not going to make this another Route 9. I almost get a little defensive, like, oh, of course, I went and took a picture of it and I want to put it on Route 33. That's not my intent. I think all of us realize that Route 33 can be developed and be nice. If you recall, before Four Seasons went in, Route 33 had a rural setting, and then a residential area went in, and a rather large residential area. Yet it's still attractive from Route 33. It had a traffic impact to Route 33, but yet it fit into the community. So going with that same theory that you can develop, you can put things in there, and it can still enhance the community. That's what I'm trying to do with it. So if I seem like I get a little defensive when everybody talks about Route 9, I try not to I don't want to talk bad about anything that was developed years ago. I don't know what criteria and what constraints they're under at the time. It was done by a different board at a different time. Some of it even predates these type of boards. So anyways, I think Route 33 will stay attractive and rural in many ways, in my opinion. So as I go through a couple of these things that we have here, I do want to ask one thing. The word neon signs has came up a couple times, Mr. Kramer, in these. Do we have an ordinance for neon signs? I mean, I don't envision these. I think we're talking more about LED signs that are out there, which I know are regulated. But let's just talk about neon. Is there an ordinance?
That actually regulates or...
Could somebody put up a neon sign out there that said Rich's Cars? Rich's...
I don't know the answer to that, Chairman. No one has applied for a neon sign in neons because it's not the state of the art.
Right, but we can be proactive on that and do something about neon signs, because I've heard the term now a couple of times over the last
I think,
couple.
Mr. Chairman, as part of the ordinance drafting process, all of that can be handled and regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Right.
something that can certainly be, it could be prohibited.
Right. So I could jot a note to the Township Committee at the time that they're writing it to just address
Right,
those.
well, it's also why the municipal land use law requires a Class 1 and a Class 3 member, so that there's some lines of communication between the board and the governing body, so that they're aware of everything that's going on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Did we get clarification on if we can vote on this ordinance with the exception of the car dealerships yet?
Well, I was waiting to hear till the end the totality of the changes. I do have some advice, but I want to get a handle on the exactly what it is that's going to be changed before I render it.
Well, we had Mr. Aronson come up with an idea that limited some of them, and then I think Mr. Eisner also came up with a second idea, both of which have merit, and maybe we could mull those around a little bit and decide which one or combination of them. As I listen to it, I'm going to tell you folks right off the top, I don't see the big distraction to the car dealerships. I used the word when I came down to your place to talk to you Monday. I called them a clean rateable. I can understand it not being, adjacent, contiguous to your place, as you'd see from my early questions here. I think I was very conscious of that. I think Mr. Eisner has come up with a good plan that took that out. I think Mr. Aronson also did the same thing. So now we have two good ideas on the table, both of which we could work with. Maybe we do want to put them on the other side of the road and still have them. Let me just use this for an example. If anybody's been down through Freehold where they have a car row, you realize that half of those cars that go to buy those cars, half of the traffic that goes into there is coming through Manalapan. We have no rateable for it, yet we have half the traffic for it. So with this on the same mind, I hate to say that we're pushing it towards the Millstone border, but we are pushing it towards the Millstone border in many ways. So we're getting an advantage without the big disadvantage, in my opinion. I'm just letting you know how this one person is processing this information as it comes to me. Thank you. So do we want to have a discussion on these two ideas that we have on the table?
I like the southbound idea more than west of Woodward.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Niebling, do you have an opinion? You comfortable with either or both? Neither?
No, but just listening to, what everybody says, we take it in greatly. And as we went through the last car dealership, a few months ago, I still truly believe that you have a nucleus that you build from. But it's okay. Remember, I said it's okay, to change things going forward. We don't have any car dealerships that want to come in right now. We don't have anything. All we're trying to do is possibly prepare for the future if it does happen. One gentleman said, he said about our children. I don't know about anybody else's children, but my kids live in such a fast-paced world that I can't even keep up with them anymore. So would they like dealerships on 33? Would they like to buy a car from Manalapan rather than go to Freehold or Toms River? Yeah, I'm sure they would. But I think the main thing to keep in mind here is all we're doing is trying to be proactive for the future. That's my opinion. I'm here for the town, as everybody knows. Just want to be proactive, try to put it down, so if it happens, then we can decide and maybe grab it and get a good, clean rateable.
Thank you.
It's my humble opinion.
Anybody else? Mendez, any statement? You good?
Like I said, I like the southbound side much more than the northbound side. You have the two residential complexes on that northbound side. The the southbound side and go Millhurst to 527A so they can be spread out more. It would limit them to 4 at the most, and that would be ridiculously high. Route 33 does not have, as we learned from the Katina project, does not have the traffic to support car dealerships anyway. You know, Audi wanted, I think Route 9 was 100,000 cars an hour. Route 33 only had 15,000 cars an hour. Doesn't support the traffic for a car dealership. I agree with our job of being proactive. I just think a lot of this is futile.
Thank you. So, Vice Chairman, you have a...
I just,
Thank you.
I just actually want to thank the chairman for your comments. I think that they were well-spoken and said everything that I would want to say, especially the explanation about the overlay zone. This is not going to look like Route 9. We worked very hard to create an overlay zone that would prevent that. A lot of us have been living here a long time. I've been living here since 1974. And the lady that came up and said, and you know, we hear it all the time, and I'm not putting it down, but when you come up and you say, I moved here from New York because I wanted to live in a rural community. Well, the fact is that before your house was built, there were people here that lived here before and said the same thing, and said, do not build these houses, you know, go to court, fight these houses because we don't want this overdevelopment. But your house was built, and now you're here, part of this community, and you have the right to come and say the same thing. But we do have to be proactive, and we do have to look to the future. I think that with either Mr. Eisner or Mr. Aronson's limitations, I could live with either one of them, and I think that this sort of thing makes sense.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, do you have something for us?
Yes, I agree with cutting it down, but the only stipulation I would have to Mr. Eisner.
Keep it down, folks, please. Good. I'm sorry, Don.
The only stipulation I would have for Mr. Eisner's recommendation is we would move it back to Millhurst. Because if we... I sit and listen to you, and it's my turn.
Thank you.
If we don't, we're cutting in 1/4 now.
Mm-hmm.
We took this half away, now we want to take half away from this, we're going to end up with nothing.
Right.
Jack, was your recommendation to do the entire south?
Right.
Okay.
Just to switch the fort to the other side. Right.
So they're still talking about 3 miles of road. Both proposals are talking about 3 miles of road, doing my math work. I clocked.
Either 3 miles from Woodward down,
right.
3 miles from one side versus the other.
Correct.
We could take the best of both and do the southbound side from Woodward to the border. And that'll limit you to 2 or 3.
Right. Well, that's what I think Don's objection was. Then we cut it in a quarter. We've cut either way. We cut it to 50%.
I like Don's thinking.
Yeah.
Is there any verbiage on new or used? I mean, do we want to lean towards new cars?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think that's an important word we need to put in there.
Yeah.
I think what you want to do, rather than limiting it to new or used cars, which is, first of all, I think it's difficult to quantify that because what you would call a new car dealership often sells pre-owned cars. Mm-hmm. So the definitions get a little unworkable. I think what we're looking for is how does it look? So I think what you want to do is concentrate on lighting requirements, signage requirements, buffer requirements, hours of operation, the size of the lot, what types of activities can go on the...
like repairs and other things?
Right, things like that. So whether it's a new or a used dealership, it will look the way that you want it to look.
Chief, did I cut you off?
No, Mr. Chairman, you never cut me off.
Okay, thank you.
But Mr. Chairman, I have to say that I do agree with you of your thought with regard to that use on 33. I think it's a good use for us. I think it can be done properly. Of course, it has to follow our ordinances and our guidelines. Looking at the suggestions from Mr. Eisner as well as Mr. Aronson, I think Mr. Aronson it's probably a lot better looking at his suggestion. I believe it's less of an impact overall from Woodward down on our west side rather than go up Millhurst. So I would be more in favor of that because of that impact. Looking at the land that could be developed, we're seeing probably only 4, what we just discussed. but I think that number might go further if we're going to go to the south side. So again, I'm in favor, but I would like to see the less impact, which would be the Aronson program. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Let's get through this. Cucciaro, are you ready to give us a ruling on?
Yeah. Now, basically, I did some quick research in the New Jersey Zoning and Land Use Administration book, which is basically our Bible for local government and land use attorneys. And it provides that if you're going to make a change, it should be carried to a different date to be voted upon. I think, based upon what I'm hearing tonight and trying to understand and be sensitive to the township committee schedule, I think it would not run afoul of the law if you voted on everything but the used car dealerships tonight.
Okay.
Not the used car, the car dealerships tonight.
Sorry, Ron.
And carry that to a different date, but I'd ask that you carry it to a date certain, so that we don't have to go through renoticing in the newspaper.
So do you want two separate motions to do that? Or can it be done in one?
It's just one motion with a couple different elements to it.
Okay. So at this point, just tell us how we're going to word that. As read, with the exception of the car dealership.
It would be a motion to approve Mr. Kramer's master plan amendment dated August 2012, with the exception of any recommendations concerning car dealerships, which will be carried to the board's whatever date you would like it to be.
All right.
And I think we need to talk to Mr. Kramer about, make sure he understands what's been discussed and see how long it will take to put that together and get it on file 10 days prior.
Okay. Okay, being that we want to do a date certain, Eleanor, do you have your September calendar there? We have the 13th and the 27th.
Yes.
I believe the Jewish holidays fall on one of those two dates. Am I not mistaken?
No, we scheduled it around.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's not. So both of those dates are good in September. They don't affect holidays. Okay, thank you. Yes.
If Mr. Kramer needs an information, he's going to pull the board to
Right. Well, right now, we're going to take a vote and take the dealerships out, and then we're going to talk about dealerships only. Okay, everybody heard the ordinance right there. We're going to have a date and a second that we're going to carry it to. You heard the way that Mr. Cucciaro read it. Would anybody like to make that motion?
We're voting on 2012, August minus the car dealership verbiage.
Correct.
Yes.
I'll make that motion to amend the master plan according to Mr. Kramer's report, minus the car dealerships, which I imagine would be heard September 27th.
We're still to set that date, figure it out. We'll know that in a second.
And I second that.
You second that. So the 27th is not affected by a holiday, so we can move it to September 27th.
It looks to be the day after Yom Kippur.
Okay, fine. Everybody's good with the date? You're not good with that? You don't mind if we continue on without you, right?
I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Get a roll call, please. Right. Yes. Great. The revised master plan amendment to the land use element. Keep it down, folks, while we get this vote down, please.
The motion was made by who?
I made the motion.
Great.
Committeeman Green.
Seconded by Mr. Mendez.
Okay, 1 second. I'm not as familiar with this book as
Yes,
Stephen.
no problem.
And seconded by Mr. Mendez. Mr. Cohen is a yes. Chief Hogan?
Chief, your vote.
I'm a yes.
Thank you. Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Chairman McNabo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Holland?
Yes.
Committeeman Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Niebling?
Yes.
Mr. Aronson?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we'll take 5. As soon as we come back, we'll discuss the amendment on the car dealership. We'll call it the Aronson plan or the Eisner plan, and then we'll move on with the rest of the evening, okay? Or suggest a third when we get back. But right now, we are adjourned.
Give it a second.
So let's take a quick poll of the board of the two proposals we have here. Which one we think is better? Let's go around, I'll do the straw poll. Mr. Aronson, which one are you leaning towards?
I'll lean towards mine.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eisner?
I could accept either one, but
Okay, fine.
I'm partial towards mine.
I understand that. Now we'll get into Mr. Niebling.
I kind of like the Aronson project.
Good. Mr. Mendez?
A fan of Eisner 1.0?
Okay, thank you.
I like the Aronson idea because I think that it will, with Jack's idea, the cars are going to have to go east.
Right.
And west.
And then still come back and come west in front of these folks' houses. So the Aronson plan eliminates that. So I'm an Aronson fan.
And to take your line, I agree with what you said also, so I'll go with an Aronson plan. On this side, do we have any opinions? Chief, let me work back.
I believe you already know mine.
Okay.
That's correct. Aronson for me.
Okay, so that's what it looks like. Both sides of the road from Woodward to 527A, to the Millstone border,
To the west, to the township line.
to the western township
Both
border.
sides of the highway.
On both sides of the highway.
Understood.
Thank you very much. Okay.
27.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, that'll be considered on September 27th, so Mr. Kramer will have that amendment prepared and on file here at the planning office by the 17th. So if anyone wants to see the actual text of it before next meeting, it will be here on the 17th. You can take a look at it, and you'll have an opportunity to provide comments only on the revision to the auto dealerships at the next hearing.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on number 3, ordinance 2012-11, as amended, ordinance of the Township of Manalapan, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 95, Development Regulations of the Code of the Township of Manalapan, Sections 95-2.4, definitions 95-5.5E, limited business, Smithburg, LB-S, and limited business, Wilson Avenue, LBW. Do you have anything for us, Mr. Kuchar?
Actually, Mr. Kramer will give you the rundown, because this ordinance effectively deals with those portions of the master plan that you just adopted.
Great, and it's here for the board for the board's determination as to consistency with the master plan and also its further recommendations. So as to the ordinance and the limited business Millhurst district, it expands as recommended by the master plan amendment that the board just approved for limited business Millhurst. The uses to include Category 1 restaurant uses, retail uses, and data centers. It does not address the master plan or include the master plan recommendation for flex space use in the zone. The ordinance also references the zone boundary changes in the master plan to include the grist mill as part of the limited business district. There is a map attachment that's referenced to the ordinance. Did not appear in the copy that was sent to the board, but there is a map attachment which shows how the limited business district in Millhurst would be revised to include the grist mill. So that recommendation, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, is consistent with respect to the recommendations of the master plan. The ordinance also changes the master plan recommendations for the limited business Wilson Avenue district, which were also the subject of the master plan amendment that the board adopted tonight, and that is consistent with the master plan recommendation. What it does is it allows, as uses within limited business Wilson Avenue, educational uses, data centers, and fitness and health clubs as part of that zone district. The ordinance also addresses the master plan recommendations for the C3 zone on Route 33 to permit flex space as a use of that zone district. It does not, however, speak to the other master plan recommendations to allow educational uses and data centers in the zone. In my opinion, the change is also substantially consistent with the recommendations of the master plan because it does revise it to permit flex space as recommended. And that's the synopsis as
Great.
to what's in there.
A lot of which we had heard already, right? Everybody knows what we have here, right? Anybody have any questions, comments? Anything? This side? Anything over here? This time I open to the public. Any members wishing to come forward and address us on ordinance 2012-11? Come on up. We need to swear you in.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record and give us your address.
Susan Hergenrother, Hergenrother, 13 Greenfield Road, Manalapan. I just have a question. Since you have essentially and technically taken a vote on the car dealership issue?
No, we haven't. What they voted...
Well...
No, let me explain.
Okay.
What they voted to do was to adopt everything in the master plan, except for car dealerships. They have given Mr. Kramer a direction on how to redraft that section, and that section will be the subject of a public hearing in September where we'll take testimony, and they will then vote as to whether that will be an amendment to the master plan or not.
So the voting for the Aronson portion was just
That was
for
just to-
Mr. Kramer,
yes.
too? Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure the Township Committee can't vote on it on the 12th.
Car dealerships are not part of the ordinance that the board is discussing tonight. That is not that's not within the ordinance. It's not a recommended change.
Anybody else?
Just to clarify, John Plaskanka, Concept Engineering, Manalapan.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, thank you. Rich, you did say that flex space would be permitted in the LBM zone?
Flex space is recommended in the master plan as a use of the LBM zone. I'm looking at the ordinance that's before the board as to the changes, and what it recommends for are the Category 1 restaurant uses, data centers, retail uses, the instructional and vocational uses, and fitness and health clubs, and also retail uses limited to the 30%. I don't see flex space as one of the enumerated uses in the...
I remember last meeting, Mr. Hochberg testified as asking for that. I thought the board agreed to include that.
Well, we did.
The board did agree.
Okay.
It's in our master plan.
But not in the ordinance.
It's not in the
Okay,
ordinance that was
correct.
given to us.
And if I could add to that, the Township Committee carried the ordinance to September 12th in order to see what transpired at this meeting. So now that we've taken a vote to amend the master plan, I'll be consulting with the township attorney, and I'm sure in conjunction with our planner, because we certainly want the ordinance to match what's in the master plan. So that's going to require an amendment on the Township Committee part, which we will straighten out and deal with on the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Any other members of the public wishing to come forward and address this board? Once, twice? Now close public. Any questions, comments here? Any motions?
Okay, Mr. Chair, what we would need is a motion to find that the ordinance is substantially consistent with the master plan.
I'll make that more.
Would anybody like to make that motion?
Don just did.
Deputy Mayor did. Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Mendez.
Mr. Cohen is a yes. Chief Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Chairman McNabo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Holland?
Yes.
Committeeman Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Niebling?
Yes.
Mr. Aronson?
Yes.
Thank you. PFS 0820A, Freehold Road Associates, sign, amended site plan. Enjoy yourself on the other side. Sonnenberg, it's good to see you. Hopefully you're feeling well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here. And I'm pleased to not have a lot of people behind me objecting to my application. I know you're here, Susan. I check to make sure you're here every time. Oh, Rhoda. Okay. Again, Sonnenberg Parker Selvers, Gerald Sonnenberg, attorney for the applicant. Service, okay?
Mr. Chairman.
Just one moment, Mr. Sonnenberg.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Okay, continue.
The service is acceptable?
Eleanor, I believe, check the service, everything's in order.
I thank you. As this board recalls, just fairly recently, at least I guess it was last year, you approved the Orchard Park, the Flex building, which you know is on 522 and is quite attractive. Unfortunately, we have a sign that can't be seen by people who are passing on the road. The tenants are concerned that people don't know where they are. They pass by, they have to make U-turns, they have to stop short to get in. And as a result of that, we are here to ask for a variance to permit a larger sign that is not in accord with the ordinance that is permitted at this particular location. And with that, Mr. Plaskanka will be speaking as an engineer and planner, of course, and will be sworn in. We have Mr. Oriema here, and we have a number of tenants who obviously would like to know that their properties can be seen or their businesses can be seen from the road. But without further ado, I guess Mrs. Plaskanka has to be sworn in.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
John J. Plaskanka, Ploskonka, professional engineer, professional planner, Manalapan, New Jersey.
Qualifications accepted, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Plaskanka, utilizing any exhibits that you have that you could identify, would you please go through in narrative fashion what the applicant is requesting? And I know you have some handouts. You'll hand them out to the folks that are on the board. And with that, I start identifying whatever we have that you would like to introduce.
Just as an introduction, Counselor, my client, who's at the back of the room with his tenants on the left side, developed Orchard Park. It's a flex building which is very attractive in the light industrial zone. So we have a building in the light industrial zone, and behind that building are other industrial properties that have been there for many years, such as BBC, as well as Tenant Commons. The building was constructed as a flex space, but it doesn't look like an industrial building. It looks more, almost a little bit of residential, has a nice feel to it, good curb appeal. But as you come down to enter that building, if you're on 522 coming from Freehold, it's 50 miles an hour as you're rolling along 522. And as you get to the bend, just before the building comes into sight, you cannot see the sign at all until you're on the driveway. And at that point, it's 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, so you have about a second or so to look to your left. And the same thing occurs when you're coming from the Silver Tavern area back towards the south. As you move along 522 at about 40 miles an hour, you have a lot of trees and woodlands just before the village green. And then as you get to the property, with the sign set back 20 feet from the right-of-way, you don't see the sign that was approved by the board. You see a sign next to it that's a temporary sign, but you don't see the sign approved by the board until you're on top of it. So the client wants to move the sign closer to the road, make it higher and larger, and make it easily readable. Just to give the board an overview, I do have a couple of exhibits. The first would be the site plan, which, let me use the aerial first. I get this marked as A.
A1.
A1.
John, pick up the microphone. Pick up the mic.
Oh, it's right
So A1 is an aerial of the site? Okay.
As I indicated in my initial speech, you can see the property in the center, which is surrounded by yellow. It's shown before the property was developed. This is a DEP aerial. You can see the driveway on the right side as you face, as you're standing on 522 looking at the property, and those 4 or 5 buildings to the back on the right is BVC. To the left is tenant commons, where it's a number of different tenants are in there. These 2 properties have no frontage at all, except for the roadway coming out to 522, and they have signs at the roadway entrances. BVC has 2 signs, and tenant commons has 2 signs. So as you get at the next set of exhibits, you'll see where those signs are and what you actually see as you stand on the road in front of the property and look towards the south or to the north. So that would be a series of photographs, B1 through 5 I have. B1 through 4. Sorry. As you stand on the roadway to the right or to the north, you can see the new building that was constructed in the rear of the picture, and you can see the BVC sign for that complex in the back, right next to the roadway. And if you go to picture number 2, it's a better picture of the building that was built, which is very well done, and one of the nicest ones for flex space that I've seen by architect Mr. Testa. If you go to picture number 3, you can now see the 2 signs that are on our property. One is the approved sign on the right, which says Orchard Park, and the one on the left is We Buy Scrap Metal, is a temporary sign. That can only be there for so many days. But the problem you have is that Orchard Park sign, as you're coming at 40 miles an hour in either direction, you can't see that sign until you're on top of it. And that's the problem that we have, and that's what we're trying to solve with our application. The next picture is where we like to place the new sign. As you're looking south, you can see those trees I mentioned in the distance, where as you're coming to the south, rather, you can't see this area, and you can see the area where we want to put the sign just further along the roadway. So that's the location that's shown on this plan, and the amended site plan, looking at the detention basin and the driveway. That sign's being placed approximately 4 feet off the right-of-way, but about 20 feet off the pavement. So we're looking to do that sign in the area where it's much more visible, as opposed to 20 feet back from the right-of-way. And the size of the sign would be a G1 sign. It's shown as about 12 foot tall, the sign, with an 8-foot stanchion below it, and it's about 6.5 feet wide. So it's about 80 square feet that shows all the tenants that are in the property that we think would be much more safer for ingress and egress and for passing traffic. Finally, just to give you a sense of what's going on in and around the area, there I just took some photographs of some nearby signs. This is Exhibit C, 1 through 4. As you go up and down 522, you have the Silver Tavern, you have Pantano has a sign within a couple feet of the road that's pretty big. You have the second one is the old Silver Tavern, now currently deceased. That's why the bag is over top of it. That was again, that's probably within 10 feet of the roadway, the pavement, at the right-of-way. You have the Battleground Deli sign, and you have the Rago Auto Care sign across from the Battleground Deli as typical examples of what we have in the area. We're trying to make the conditions safer for the traveling public as well as for provide business for our tenants at the site. Rich Kramer points out that we do need 2 variances in his report, that the G1 sign, 4-foot setback, we're requesting 20 foot's required, and the G1 sign has to have frontage 500 feet on a highway. We only have 205, and it's supposed to be on a divided road with 4 more lanes. We are in the industrial zone. We're on a bend, and you can see that bend as you look at the first set of exhibits, probably the third one that showed the BBC sign. You see that bend comes in, so you come flying along that bend, and you can't see very much. And we hope to get rid of the 2 signs that we have, leave the landscaping that's there by the little wall, put the sign up front, and then to work with Rich to fine-tune the sign so that it would make it more compatible with the landmark corridor. We'd only be lit, it would not be lit between 11 and 7 a.m. as per the ordinance, would adhere to the 60% context coverage limit, and there would only be 1 ground sign on the property when we're done. So we think that the request here, we're trying to protect the health and safety of the traveling public by making sure that we don't impair the public's ability to receive information from signs.
Well, this is, and John is discussing right now 95.8.7, which is the township's requirement with regard to signs, right, John? So in effect,
yes, Councilor.
The purpose of the section is to have the public's ability to receive information. Is that, and so this does comply, where in fact the other does not comply in real?
Correct, exactly correct. Based on the above, I don't see a problem with the master plan or the zone ordinance in terms of the board approving this plan. I think it'll be safer for everyone involved, and it would be substantially improve the situation.
Well, number 3, it says, what does number 3 say, John, in the purpose?
Number 3 in the purpose is to encourage signs which aid orientation and identify activities.
Okay, so that certainly does this, right, where the other does not?
Correct. That doesn't, you can't see the sign.
Do you think, okay, in the same token, Mr. Kramer indicates in his report, of course, the variances, but he also speaks to the fact of its positive or negative criteria as well. In other words, basically, is this going to create any problem? Let's take the negative part. Is this going to have any effect on the neighborhood, in your opinion, or in terms of detriment to the neighborhood?
I do not believe so. I think it would be a benefit because of the safety issues.
And a positive criteria? We talk, of course, about the narrowness or shallowness or shape of the property or topography. So, in effect, based on those aspects of it, what is your opinion with regard to the placement of the sign at variance in terms of its setback and its height from that which is permitted in this particular area?
Although we're asking for a 4-foot setback from the right-of-way, we're still about 20 feet from the road. So we're not right on the road, as some of the other signs you see are along the roadway. So we're back far enough so that we're not close to the paved area. And in terms of, it will encourage and aid the traveling public and be a safety factor.
And we're only going to have one sign, correct?
One sign. All the other signs will be taken away. The 2 other signs you see on the property for tenant commons are not our signs. They've been there for years, and we have no control over those signs. I'd like to take them down, but we can't.
Well, can I just go back to that for a second? So your client will only have one sign.
That's correct.
But on the property, there'll be multiple ground signs?
No, those are signs that are for the other 2 pieces on either side of us.
It's not on your lot?
Not on our lot. No.
Correct.
Okay.
They're there, and they block us as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure they weren't.
Because we're between the 2 roads.
John, one is shown on your lot. There are 2 signs. One is shown in the right-of-way, and one is shown on the lot, on your lot. The sign that says for rent tenant commons looks like a post is
That's
on
not
your
us. That's Tenant Commons, which is next to us.
It's their sign, Rich.
And it's that's in there right away. It looks like there's a post on your lot based.
They're very close to the property line, and we didn't stake it to make sure it's on ours or theirs, but obviously if we stake it, they'll move it 1 foot or half a foot, but they're not our signs.
Okay, then the other sign is ID sign 225. It looks like Route 552. That's shown as being on your property.
What sign is that?
It says ID sign 225 Route 522. And that is on the plan shows it on your property, on the applicant's property.
What's it say?
It's your plan.
That's how it's identified.
John, what's it say, John?
There are 2 signs that you saw and I saw today.
Right, one's coming down.
Next to each other.
Yes.
At the property line,
Right.
which are both for tenant commons.
Right.
They're both tenant common signs.
They're not ours.
Survey shows one completely on your property.
100%.
Well, then I guess you could tell us to tell the people to get rid of it.
We're going to, I mean, you tell them it's your property.
Well, no, we'll get rid of it if that's what you want.
And actually, the shows the post. Because the post for the for rent tenant common sign is on your property too. So you have one sign and one post.
The applicant doesn't have an agreement to have tenant commons.
We have no agreements with them at all.
We would like.
We actually tried to get, if this board remembers, you wanted us to see if we could get access for either one of their roads to come into our site, and they did not, they were not positive when we asked them for that.
Well, if they're shown correctly on the survey, then they're encroaching onto your property.
So they are there, and
well, it's hard to, in the photos you provided, the one sign you can see. It's hard, I don't know if, it's hard to see the other sign. I don't know if it's blocked by landscape.
well, what we will do, if they are on, which is not really relevant to this application, but if this board, or in fact, if they violate and they're on, we could tell them to take it off. They'll probably just go and move it, and then we'll have another little hearing here. I guess if they want those signs, they have to come back here. But that's their problem.
Or alternatively, you could ask for variance relief to allow everything to stay where it is. I mean, it's up.
Well, they're not our signs. We're not going to ask for a variance for their signs. If you let them stay there because they've been there forever, they'll stay there.
Somebody has to ask us.
Okay, we don't have an objection to them being there. We never did. If this board has a problem with it, we'll so notify them, but if you want to include such other variances as may be required, we'll ask for the variance to permit their signs to remain. Of course, if they change, one of them used to be up for sale, they'd have to come in for site plan approval or whatever, and you could have them take care of their signage. I mean, we just don't want to cause a problem for them. That's really where it's at. And they have been there for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, maybe more.
They have adverse possession, I think.
Right, maybe that's right. They'll tell us they have adverse possession. We can have a nice case about that.
We can ask them to move them, and they could move them maybe a foot or two and be on their own property. But we'll have to stake it and double-check it.
I think if they move them.
I know what Jim's
onto
going to
their
say now,
property,
right?
They're going to need site plan.
There you go.
In the right-of-way, they're going to need county road.
I knew that. Okay, so in effect, let's just ask for the variance at this point, if the town wants to give it to us for their signs, to let them stay there. If that's the easiest way to handle it. It's up to you guys. Otherwise, we're going to make a major production out of this on their sign issues.
Are you good, Rich, or are you still thinking?
I think we just need to know, coming out of the meeting, just how many signs are going to be on the property if the variance relief is granted for freestanding signs. And it sounds like
We're going to construct one new sign and eliminate the temporary sign and the sign that was approved by the board. The other two signs that are on our property, within a foot or so, we're asking for a variance, or if the board wants us to ask them to remove it, we'll do that too.
Am I following this? The sign that says for rent has been up there for 30 years. Does that sound right? I mean, I'm sure they've rented the building in that time.
Actually, they have been looking for tenants for as long as I know.
So the sign's not working for them?
Obviously,
I'd go with another.
Not very well. Not very well.
Okay. Rich, are you good, or are we going to continue to beat a 30-year-old sign to death?
I don't think we should. It'll eventually age itself into the ground.
Maybe it'll just fall apart.
All right. Okay. Are you done, sir? Or...
I'm finished. Mr. Plaskanka, do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't.
If the board, to give you better time, we do have two tenants and Mr. Oriema who will, if they just stand up for us, and I would represent to the board, they will obviously testify that they want the new sign and they can't be seen. You could hear the grandmother story who missed them and all the other things, but you can rest assured that that's why they're here, to support what Mr. Plaskanka said. If you'd like to speak to them, I will bring them up and swear them, and you'll be sworn in, and you can ask them any questions. They'll state, for the obvious reasons, they want to be able to be seen.
Wet Willie?
Wet Willie is the pool. Yes, the Wet Willies are here. The two. Would the Wet Willies stand up, please?
Just give a wave.
There they go right there.
Okay.
They're the Wet Willies.
Pool cleaning. Pool cleaning service.
Okay. All right, moving forward, any members of the board having questions for this applicant? Anybody?
You guys can sit down if you'd like.
Yeah. Anybody? All right.
John,
You got one?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question.
If not, I'll go. Go ahead, you go.
The one that says "We buy scrap metal," that's
gone. That's
gonna
a
leave.
temporary. That's a temporary sign.
So the other one over here.
That's
the one
gone. That's gone too.
But that's beautiful. Why?
Yes, you can't
Why would
see-
they want to take it down?
Well, if you want to give us a variance to keep that sign, we'll keep it. But in order to put the other sign up and only have one sign, we were taking it down. Obviously, you can't see that sign. We'd keep it there. We'll leave the shrubbery there. We'll
I
just
just
take
think
the
it looks
sign.
beautiful. I hate to.
It's a lovely sign. Nobody could see it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the reason. Variance-wise. Okay.
In that same vein, why are we not just putting the sign there, raising it a little more, somewhere between this 20-foot-high sign and what you have? I mean, there's a whole lot of common ground between that, gentlemen.
Because of the way the road bends in that area and the speed of the road, most people are driving 50 miles an hour. The Silver Tavern, everyone else sign got out closer to the road to see the thing. So we try to get as close as we can, but we're still 20 feet off the pavement. So we don't want to be 40 feet off the pavement or 30 feet off the pavement.
And Mr. Chair? I mean, the landscaping along the frontage is the biggest problem. I mean, you got the evergreens and then you got the shade tree, and they're growing in and they're
But
completely
all of
blocked.
those are their landscape, am I correct there?
Yeah.
So they could give us an amended landscaping plan along with their sign plan. The 4 feet from the road is, I'm choking on this.
It's not 4 feet from the road. it's
4 feet from your property, your own
Property line, right, 20 feet from the road.
20 feet in the road.
From the, I guess
And were
there's a
those-
utility easement up front.
Those speed zones changed since this original sign was put in?
No,
Okay, so you knew it when the original sign went in?
correct.
Right.
We met the ordinance requirements, and we now have the problem. That's why we're here.
Again, to go back, Pantano's a pretty new sign, but when I look at the OST, the Battleground Deli, and Rago's, they don't scream out new signs to me.
No, they're
So I
not.
think both
They're not.
of them, they
They're
all
old.
date
They're
back.
old signs. They're old signs.
I got to agree with you. Your tenant or the applicant did a beautiful job in that building.
And on the signage, and on the landscaping, right.
And I'm looking for some common ground between the sign they have and the sign that you're asking for.
Well, we could go down a few feet if you think 20 feet's too high. I mean, 18, 16 feet, perhaps we could do and still get enough people in there if you think that's too high, because we thought about what comments you might make, but we do want to be able to have people see Wet Willie and the others. And once again, it is not a residential neighborhood. It is a commercial neighborhood. We have a couple of houses, but basically, we have 100,000 feet behind us of